Adrian Newey has just made a stunning admission about Aston Martin's AMR26, and it could change the future of the entire team. The car has scored only 1 point all season, fell roughly 1 second per lap behind the next slowest team at its lowest point, and is carrying major weight, integration, and aerodynamic problems. Now Newey says the bold direction was largely pushed by him, while Aston Martin's outdated tools, rushed design process, and lack of cohesion made the situation even worse. But the rescue package is coming. A new nose, substantially revised aerodynamic surfaces, a modified rear suspension, major weight reduction, and a rehomologated forward chassis are all planned for Hungary. Newey expects a large step, but refuses to give an exact number because the simulation tools still cannot be fully trusted. That means this upgrade could save the AMR26, restore Fernando Alonso's confidence, and prove Newey's radical concept was misunderstood. Or it could expose that Aston Martin built the wrong car from the beginning. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this revelation is so important, you have to look beyond the new nose, the revised suspension, and the weight reduction. The biggest problem with the AMR26 may not be one bad part. It may be the way Aston Martin was working before the car even existed. Newey admitted the team had talented people, but they were not yet operating as one cohesive unit. That sounds like a management problem. In Formula 1, it becomes a performance problem almost immediately. A car is created by hundreds of people making thousands of connected decisions. The aerodynamic department shapes the airflow. The chassis team determines where the major structures sit. The suspension group controls how the car moves. The power unit engineers manage how the engine and electrical systems fit into the package. The simulator team predicts how the driver will experience all of it. If those groups are not moving together, the car begins fighting itself. One department solves a problem. Another department creates a new one. One group reduces weight. Another adds more because integration arrived too late. A shape that looks perfect in the wind tunnel may become impossible to package around the gearbox. And by the time everyone understands the full consequence, the deadline has already passed. That is what makes Newey's admission so serious. He did not blame only the late start. He did not blame only Honda. He did not blame only the regulations. He said the organization itself was not working as well as it needed to. And then he went even further. Some of Aston Martin's tools and processes had reportedly been patched together for years. Newey said parts of the system could be traced back to the early days of the Jordan team at Silverstone. Think about that. Aston Martin entered a completely new technical era with a new engine partner, a new factory, a new wind tunnel, and one of the most respected designers in Formula 1 history. But underneath that modern image, parts of the working process were still connected to systems built for a completely different age. It is like installing a brand new engine in a car while keeping damaged wiring hidden behind the dashboard. Everything may look advanced from the outside, but the old connections can still limit the entire machine. Newey described those systems as patch on patch. One temporary solution added to another, then another. Eventually, the process becomes so complicated that nobody fully trusts it. That creates delays. It creates mistakes. And most dangerously, it creates uncertainty. An engineer changes one thing and cannot be completely certain what else will be affected. A simulation produces a promising result, but the team does not know whether the model reflects reality. A new component arrives at the circuit, and the driver immediately discovers behavior the factory never predicted. That is how a team with enormous resources can still fall behind. Not because it lacks intelligence. Because the intelligence is trapped inside a weak system. And the AMR26 exposed that weakness brutally. At its lowest point, Aston Martin was reportedly around 1 second per lap behind the next slowest team. 1 second. In Formula 1, that is not a small gap. That is a different competitive world. A tenth of a second can decide several grid positions. A full second can leave a driver fighting the car before he even begins fighting another team. And Aston Martin had scored only 1 point. Fernando Alonso had delivered that single point in Monaco. Lance Stroll had scored none. That is the reality behind the radical design. A car that looked extraordinary. A car that attracted attention from experts and rivals. A car with aggressive suspension placement, unusual bodywork, and one of the most famous designers in the sport. Yet almost no reward. That contradiction is what the Hungary package must solve. Because Aston Martin does not only need more downforce. It needs proof that the entire development process can now function properly. The new nose matters. The revised aerodynamic surfaces matter. The slightly altered rear suspension matters. The weight reduction matters enormously. But the hidden question is whether all those changes were created through a better system. Did the departments communicate earlier? Did the wind tunnel produce more reliable information? Did the simulator match the expected behavior? Did Honda and Aston Martin improve the integration between the power unit, gearbox, chassis, and cooling layout? If the answer is yes, Hungary could become the beginning of a real recovery. If the answer is no, the new parts may simply become another expensive collection of ideas that do not work together. And this is where Newey accepted personal responsibility. He said the aggressive aerodynamic direction was largely pushed by him. That is a remarkable admission. Designers at this level rarely speak so openly about a concept that has struggled. It would have been easy to point toward the late start. Easy to blame the overweight chassis. Easy to blame the new Honda engine. Easy to say the team simply needed more time. Newey did not do that. He acknowledged that the bold direction created challenges Aston Martin did not anticipate. But he stopped short of calling the concept fundamentally wrong. That distinction is critical. A fundamentally wrong car needs a new philosophy. A difficult car may only need its weaknesses understood. Newey still appears to believe the AMR26 has a future. The Hungary Evolution package is his attempt to prove it. And the details reveal how deep the changes really go. The core chassis and gearbox architecture will remain. Aston Martin is not replacing the entire skeleton of the car, but weight has been removed from both areas. The forward section of the chassis required rehomologation and another crash test. That is not a cosmetic update. Anytime a team changes a major safety structure, the car must prove again that it can protect the driver. The FIA does not allow teams to simply make a structural part lighter and trust that it remains safe. The updated section must survive the required testing. That takes design work, manufacturing, planning, and time. So Aston Martin is not only changing the airflow around the car, it is changing part of the physical foundation. That shows how serious the weight problem became. Newey admitted the team had not done a good enough job saving weight. Some of that came from integrating the new Honda power unit. Some came from vibration problems. And some came from the rushed design process itself. Weight is often one of the first areas to suffer when a team runs out of time. The part must work. It must survive. It must pass inspection. And when engineers do not have enough time to optimize every layer, they build in extra strength, extra material, extra safety margin. That protects reliability. But it creates mass. Imagine packing for a long trip in a hurry. You do not carefully select the lightest version of everything. You throw in extra clothing, extra shoes, extra items you may not need. The suitcase closes. But carrying it becomes much harder. A Formula One car suffers in the same way. Extra weight affects acceleration, braking, direction changes, tire stress, and energy use. It follows the car through every corner. It cannot be hidden. That is why getting close to the minimum weight limit could provide a gain across the entire lap. The car accelerates more easily. It stops more efficiently. It changes direction with less resistance. And the engineers gain more freedom to place ballast where it helps balance. Ballast is carefully positioned weight. When a car is naturally light enough, the team can place additional mass in useful areas to improve handling. When the car is already overweight, that freedom disappears. The weight is trapped wherever the structure created it. That can make the car not only slower, but harder to balance. So the Hungary upgrade is attacking two problems at once. The car needs better aerodynamics. And it needs to carry less unnecessary mass. That combination may explain why Newey expects a large step. But he refuses to give an exact number. And that caution may be the most revealing part of the entire update. Aston Martin simulation tools are still not as advanced, or as well correlated, as Newey wants. That means the team cannot fully trust that the predicted improvement will appear on the track. The computer may show a large gain. The wind tunnel may support it. But the real car remains the final judge. This is where Aston Martin has already suffered. When a team lacks strong correlation, development becomes slow and confusing. An upgrade may appear successful virtually, then fail in reality. The engineers return to the factory. They compare the numbers. They change the model. Then the next upgrade arrives with another question. It is like using a scale that gives a slightly different reading every time you step on it. You can still see a general direction, but precise decisions become difficult. Newey needs Aston Martin's tools to become trustworthy, not eventually. Now, because the team is already behind. The new factory cannot simply look impressive. The wind tunnel cannot simply be modern. The simulator cannot simply be expensive. They must produce information that matches the car. Otherwise, Aston Martin will continue designing with uncertainty. And uncertainty destroys speed. A team with strong tools can test several ideas before manufacturing anything. It can reject weak concepts early. It can identify which upgrade creates the best return. A team with weak tools may spend time and money building parts that never had a real chance. That difference accumulates across a season. One wasted update becomes 2, then 3. Meanwhile, rivals continue moving forward. That is why the Hungary package is a test of far more than Newey's creativity. It is a test of Aston Martin's entire transformation. The new processes, the new infrastructure, the relationship with Honda, the communication between departments, and the ability to produce a major upgrade that works immediately. But there is another consequence hiding inside this story. Fernando Alonso's future. Newey said Alonso wants clear, tangible progress. Not another promise. Not another ambitious presentation. Progress he can feel. That places even more pressure on Hungary. Alonso has the experience to understand whether a car is improving for the right reasons. He can feel whether the balance is becoming more consistent. He can tell whether an upgrade has opened a genuine development path, or only moved the weakness somewhere else. And he is at a stage of his career where time matters enormously. He cannot wait forever for a project to become competitive. That makes the upgrade almost like a contract negotiation conducted through lap time. Aston Martin does not only need to tell Alonso the future is strong. The car must tell him. Every braking zone, every high-speed corner, every acceleration zone. If the upgrade delivers, Alonso may believe the project is finally moving decisively. If it fails, another year may look much harder to justify. That is why Newey called him a tremendous asset. Alonso brings experience, sensitivity, and the ability to guide development. A difficult car needs that. But an experienced driver also recognizes when a project is not progressing fast enough. The same quality that helps Aston Martin improve may help Alonso decide when improvement is no longer coming. That is the human pressure behind the technical package. Newey is not only trying to rescue performance. He may be trying to preserve the belief of the driver most capable of exposing the car's true potential. And then there is Newey's own position. He revealed that the team principal title is partly a formal requirement, but the strategic responsibility is real. When the most important decisions are made, the final responsibility rests with him. That means Hungary will also judge his leadership, not only his aerodynamics. Can he turn a talented but disconnected organization into one unit? Can he replace outdated processes without paralyzing the team? Can he make the new tools reliable? Can he manage Honda integration, weight reduction, and aerodynamic development at the same time? And can he do all of that while the car is already racing at the back? This may be one of the most difficult challenges of his career. At Red Bull, Newey worked inside a structure that already understood how to win. At Aston Martin, he is helping build that structure while trying to create the car at the same time. It is like designing an aircraft while the factory is still being assembled. That does not excuse the results, but it explains why the challenge is so extreme. And this is why the AMR26 Evolution package cannot be judged only by where Aston Martin finishes in Hungary. A single result can be affected by weather, safety cars, reliability, strategy, traffic. The deeper test is whether the car behaves as predicted. Does the weight reduction improve the balance? Does the new nose create cleaner airflow? Do the revised surfaces produce usable grip? Does the rear suspension change help stability? And do Alonso and Stroll feel the same direction the simulations predicted? If those answers are positive, even a modest result could be important. Because Aston Martin would finally have a reliable foundation. The team could develop with confidence. Each upgrade would build on the last. And the radical concept might begin revealing why Newey still refuses to call it wrong. But if the car behaves unpredictably again, the crisis becomes much deeper. Then Aston Martin is not simply missing performance. It is missing understanding. And a Formula One team cannot develop what it does not understand. That is the real shock in Newey's revelation. The AMR26 may not have failed because one famous designer made one bad decision. It may have failed because the entire organization was not ready to transform that decision into a complete racing car. Hungary is the first major attempt to change that. Not with hype. Not with reputation. With a lighter structure, a new aerodynamic package, and a development process that must finally prove it can be trusted. Because this upgrade is not only trying to make Aston Martin faster. It is trying to prove Aston Martin has finally learned how to build around Adrian Newey.